Alright, hi there guys, my name is Mr. Bede and today I'm going to be taking you through the computer science paper, the 2022 paper 2. Alright, it is worth 80 marks and the paper does have 20 pages. So, getting straight into it. Your selection will always have if and else in there, and your iteration will have your for and while loops. Now, having a look at this question, it's asking you to identify the selection and iteration as per the OCR reference language code. So, looking at the first one, I can see it's a for loop, so straight away I know that here we are looking at iteration, okay? Moving forward, we have a while loop, iteration, we have an if statement, so therefore it's selection, and we have a switch case, which picks a case depending on what the user picks, and therefore it is selection. Alright, write pseudocode to increment the value held in the variable score by 1. Now, the variable specifically being said here is score, so we do know that we must use score. There are a few ways of doing this, but the way I like doing it is I like doing score is equal to score plus 1. However, having said that, you would still get the answers if you do score is equal to plus plus, okay? The next question, state the name of each of the following computational thinking techniques. Okay, so breaking a problem down, a complex problem down into smaller problems, well, straight away that's decomposition if you're breaking something down. If you're removing something irrelevant, okay, from a problem to reduce the complexity, that is abstraction. Now, that does come from the start of the spec in 2.1. Alright, so question 2. A fast food restaurant offers a half price meal if the customer is a student or has a discount card. The offer is not valid on Saturdays. There are 3 inputs when doing this problem, okay? You have A is a student, B has a discount card, C, the current day is a Saturday. The logic system is P is equal to A or B. Okay, so we know there, we already know there it's A or B. It's an OR logic gate, and not C. Alright, so straight away, because it says A or B, we know that we must draw an OR gate. Alright, once we've done that, we'll have a look at C, and it says not C. So straight away I can see from here I need to draw a NOT gate. And in order to put these statements together, it is using an AND. So there was an AND, alright? Quick tip here, if you do want to remember it, I like to think of the AND kind of looks like the last letter, D here. And some students like to think that the OR looks like a fish almost, and they always remember the NOT gate with the circle that goes on the end of it, okay? Alright, a truth table can be produced for this logic circuit. Describe the purpose of a truth table. Right? It is worth 2 marks. Now, a lot of students often get the very first mark for mentioning all of the outputs, which is absolutely fine. But what they fail to mention is it shows all of the possible inputs, okay, and the associated outputs. So that's where they go wrong. They're not mentioning that it shows the inputs for the outputs, okay? So the inputs always comes first, and then you get the outputs. Okay, state how many rows, excluding any headings, that would be required in a truth table for the logic expression. Okay, so there's 3 gates, 2 to the power of 3. You should get 8 for this. Alright, so the restaurant needs an algorithm designing to help employees work out if a customer can have a half a meal price or not. It should include the following: input the required data, decide if the customer is entitled to a discount, so that's a decision, and you have another output, which is the results of the calculation. So step 1 in my head, I know that this is a flowchart. So from those statements, what I will be doing is thinking about what symbols or do I actually need. So I need a parallelogram for an input and output, and a diamond for a decision. Alright, before we get into this question, some of the things that the examiner looks out for. Okay, so have you connected the start and end, because that's the first mark, and then obviously are you using the correct symbols as per the question. So I'm just going to refer back to the start of question 2, because here it tells you the 3 inputs that you need. Okay, so the first input is a student, second one is has a discount card, and the third one is the current day is a Saturday. So what I am now going to do is transfer those inputs to the flowchart. Alright, and you can see here, input a student card, input a discount card, and input the day. Now comes the decisions that need to be made, alright? Now, it says here specifically, it needs to work out if a customer can have a half price meal or not, alright? So, based on our input, if the day is not a Saturday, and if the student, if it's true, and if the student has a discount card, then they can have a discount at half price, okay? But if it's not a Saturday, right, they get the full price. Or if it is a Saturday and the student doesn't have the discount card, it's false, and therefore they have to pay the full price. All right, so more specifically, we're looking at the inputs and the 2 separate decisions on this case. All right, remember to always refer back to the the question at the start, because that's where you'll find the decisions that are being made. All right, here you have A, B, C, and P. All right, that's how we're drawing our flowchart from this diagram here. All right, moving on to question C. The restaurant adds a service charge to the cost of a meal depending on the number of people at a table. If there are more than 5 people, 5% is added to the total cost of each meal. Customers can choose to leave a tip. This is optional, and the customer can choose between a percentage of the cost or a set amount. Identify all of the inputs that would be required. Okay, so first and foremost, it says there that if there are more than 5 people, okay, so the first input in this program is, for me, would be to identify, well, how many people are actually at the table, okay? And based on the people at the table, the second part of the question says that they can choose between a percentage of the cost or a set amount, okay? So that's where your second mark would come from as well, where you state you choose between a percentage and a value. All right, mark 1 and mark 2. Moving on to part D then. Okay, each member of staff that works in a restaurant is given a staff ID. This is calculated using the following algorithm. All right, let's just have a look at the algorithm first of all. So line 1 takes the surname as an input, which is a string. Line 2 takes year as an input, which again is a string. Line 3 adds them, but if you look more specifically, surname remains a string, but the year is converted into a string, because when we take that input, the user will enter it using numbers on their keyboard, which means that they will enter it using whole numbers. All right, line 4 says while staff ID dot length is less than 10, I will add X to the value, okay? And I will repeat and I'll keep doing this until that while loop is met. And once the condition is met, on line 7, I'll print out ID along with the staff ID with all of those extra X's. Okay, part I then, define the term casting and give the line number where casting has been used in the algorithm. So in this particular case here, well, we know straight away casting is when you're converting a data type to another type, all right? So nice forward, straight definition. But where it says the line number, we spoke about initially the fact that surname remains a string, but the year, which was entered as a string, is actually the year that was entered as an integer is actually now converted into a string. So therefore, we need to mention line 3. Now, part II, complete the following trace table for the given algorithm when the surname coffee and the year 2021 are entered. You may not need to use arrows in the table. So line 1 and 2, first and foremost, we can see that the surname is entered and the year is entered. All right, so if we go straight away to line 3, all it's going to do is it's going to put them together. Okay, line 3 puts coffee 2021 together. And then we move on to line 4 and 5. Line 4 is a condition which checks something, but we move on to line 5, which actually adds an X. Okay, it adds an X to the current output, and because it adds an X and the condition is not met, therefore the condition is not met whereby staff ID dot length is not less than 10. I'll do that one more time. Okay, I'll keep doing that and adding X's to coffee 2021 until they are above the length of 10. And once the condition is met, what happens is it goes to line 7 and it prints out ID, all right, ID along with the staff ID. And if we know that the staff ID is the last coffee 2021 XX, so it puts them together and it prints out your output right there. Okay, so question 3. A program stores the following list of positive and negative numbers. The numbers need sorting into ascending order using merge sort. The first step is to divide the list into individual lists, one each number. This has been done for you. Complete the merge sort of the data showing each step of the process. So I'm going to jump straight into this and show you step 1. Now, step 1 is where you've split them up already because they've given us that step. But in step 2 then, shall we say, you're merging them into separate lists of a maximum size of 2. So for example, I'd have 4512, minus 9900, minus 130, 17, and minus 27. But when you are organizing them into the lists, you must make sure that they're in a sorted order, okay? So here you can see you have 12, 45, minus 9900, minus 13, 0, minus 27, and 17. Now the reason why I've put them in this particular order is because the question states that they must go in ascending order, right? So once we've sorted them out into a list of 2, the next step is to put them into a list of 4, Alright, so I'll do the first four, put the first four in order, and I'll put the last four into order, okay? So that's 1 mark, 2 marks, but there's a third mark which is left, and that is where all four, okay, all two of the lists with the size of 4 are put back into order, and whereby you have everything in ascending order. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Once the numbers are in order, a binary search can be run on the data. Describe the steps in a binary search we'll look at for a number in a sorted list. Alright guys, so it tells us first of all that it's in order, which is really good because we know already that in order for you to do binary search, it is a very efficient algorithm of a linear search, but we do know that it has to be in order, okay? So we're going to get straight into it, and we always know that you have to select, okay, or you can say choose the middle number. Now once you've picked that middle number, alright, you either do the left or the right, depending on if it's an odd or even list. But once you've picked the middle number, alright, you're going to check now, is that equal to the target you're finding? Now, if that number is bigger than the target you're finding, okay, what you want to do is you want to discard the right side. But if it's smaller, you want to disregard the left side. And what you want to do is you want to repeat this process again and again, okay, until your number is found. Alright, so essentially, split the list again and again until you get to your number. And that's where your 4 marks come from. Now, with linear search, so it wants you to describe the steps of linear search would follow when searching for a number that is not in the given list, alright? Now, what we find here is that a lot of students tell us that, you know what, we'll go through the list and we'll check the values, but the reason why a lot of students only get 1 mark on this question is because they don't tell us more specifically that you must start off at the first value, okay? And the second point would be you need to check all the values in order, right? So remember, if you ever do get this question come up, start off with the first value in the list. Okay, moving on to the next question then. So here we got Jack is writing a program to add some numbers. His first attempt at the program is shown. So here we have A, B, C, D, E, F. So A to E, he's just asking you to enter a number. In F, he's adding them all up and he's printing the value out for you. Alright, describe 2 ways that maintainability of this program could be improved. Well, the first thing I can see here is that as a programmer, we are having to look at this and have our own interpretation on it. It would have been a lot easier if he added comments, alright? So that's my first thing I'd say. And the second thing I can see is he's using very basic letters. I would recommend, okay, that those letters are named sensibly, okay? And we have to specifically say, to get the mark here, name the variables sensibly. Alright, moving on. You can see that Jack's program uses the addition operator. This adds together 2 numbers. State the purpose of each operators, okay? Arithmetic operators. Now, the first one, we know that it's an asterisk, okay? And an asterisk in Python allows us to multiply, okay? And the next one is your /, which divides, okay? Nice question, very simple to get. Okay, so complete the description of the programming languages and translators by writing the correct term from the box in each space. So here are all of our words: continues, crashes, debugging, and all the up until without. Alright, so let's have a look. Jack writes a program in A. Let's have a look at it. So it can either be high or low. But if we're looking at the question from before, it would be high level because it's Python, okay? He writes a program in a high level language. This needs to be translated into assembly or machine code before it can be executed. This is done using a translator. One type of translator is an interpreter. This converts one line and then executes it before moving on to the next line. Okay, what does it do? Let's have a look. It stops, okay, when an error is found, and when corrected, continues running from the same position. Okay, that's very important actually, because what you find is in Python, when you have an error, it'll even tell you, okay, depending on what you're running. If you're running Visual Studio Code, if you're running Atom, for example, they actually tell you, okay, on which line the error has occurred. The translator is helpful when debugging code. Now, a second type of translator is a compiler. This converts all of the code and produces an error report. The code will not run until there are no errors. Okay, we can see straight away there can't be any errors. All right, the well, the file, it'll be some type of file, okay? So we can see that it'll be the executable file produced can be run, all right, without the compiler. Okay, there are your selections for this question. It's a mark per question, per selection. All right, moving on. Okay, so here we've got a programming question. Let's start off by reading and understanding the question. One thing I always like to do personally is I always like to look at how many marks it's worth, all right? Now, Jack decides to improve his program. He wants to be able to input how many numbers to add, he wants to input how many numbers to add together each time the algorithm runs, and also wants it to calculate and display the average of these numbers. Write an algorithm to ask the user to input the quantity of numbers when they want to be entered and read this value as an input. Repeatedly take numbers as an input until the quantity of numbers the user input has entered. Okay, that's a really smart point there. Point 2, we'll come back onto that in a minute. Calculate and output the total of these numbers and calculate and output the average of these numbers, okay? So, first step, nice and simple. So if you look at point 1, all you want to do is you want to input the quantity that you want the user to enter, okay? So number is equal to, please enter how many numbers you'd like. Now, point 2 says repeatedly take a number as an input until the quantity of numbers the user has been entered, okay? Now, for x is equal to 1 to num, all right? So that's saying from 1 to whatever number the user tells me, I'm going to repeat the following steps, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take temperature as an input. So I'm going to ask them, I'm going to do temperature, and I'm going to add that to total, okay? And I'm going to do that, for example, if they were to, if they told me do 7 numbers, I'm going to do that 7 times, okay? And I'm going to keep adding temperature into total 7 times, all right? So there should be total is equal to 0 outside of the for loop here. And after I've done that, all I'll do is I'll print the total out and print total divided by num. So here you can see now, I've actually done this using Python. And here you can see I've got total is equal to 0. But if you want to do this in Python, you need to make sure you use for I in the range of, okay? So 1 to number. And you also need to make sure that you're declaring the inputs. So for example, when I take temperature as an input, it is an integer, okay? And when I am doing my total, it definitely has to be declared on the outside. Either one of these would be absolutely correct and will allow you to attain the full mark, 6 marks. Okay, so this is section B now. It's advised to spend about 40 minutes on this. Some of the questions require you to respond using OCR exam reference language or a high-level programming language you have studied. These are clearly shown. Okay, customers at a hotel can stay between 1 and 5 inclusive nights and can choose between a basic or premium room. A typical booking record is shown in the table. So, the first thing they want you to do is state the most appropriate data type for the following fields. You have nights and room. Now we know already that if you're going to talk about nights, there can be 1 night, there can be 4 nights, there can never be half a night, okay? So first and foremost then, so if you're talking about nights, it's an integer. Now, if we look at the room says premium, but it also says that it can be premium or basic. So therefore, if this is premium or basic, we know it's a string. Alright, give the name of one field that could be stored as a Boolean data type, okay? So having a look here, we've got first name, surname, night's room. We've done these two, so it's either between stay complete, first name and surname. Well, we know already that the first two are strings, so therefore it must be the last one where it says stay complete, okay? Do try and copy this down correctly, okay, if you can. You notice how the C has been capitalized. Do try and put this in, okay? So, alright. The booking records are stored in a database. The table is called table bookings. The following SQL statement is written to display all customer bookings that stay more than 1 night. Alright, the SQL statement above is incorrect. Now, having a look at this already, I can see there's quite a few things that are incorrect. So I'll start off by the first statement. In order for us to select all, we either A, have to go back to the question, and we have to select the individual records that we want to add into the statement, or we can very simply add an asterisk, okay? An asterisk, also known as a wildcard in SQL, will allow you to select every column, okay? And it's the easiest way out. Now, having a look at the second one, you got from table bookings. That is absolutely fine. But the issue comes from here, okay? Where it says if nights is less than 1, all right? We don't actually want to do that. What we want to do is we want to do where. So it's always select from and where, okay? And it's not nights less than 1 because that won't work. They have to be above 1 in order for this to work, okay? In order for a booking to go through, it has to be above 1. So you get 1 mark for your select, 2 marks for from bookings, the 3rd mark comes from where, and the 4th mark is for the actual condition itself, okay? So, moving forward, when a new booking is recorded, the details are entered into a program. To validate the program, the values, the following criteria are checked, okay? So you have first and surname are not empty. The room is either basic or premium. The nights is between 1 and 5 inclusive. If any data is found, not allowed is displayed, and if all the data is valid, then allowed is displayed, alright? Complete the following program to validate the inputs. You must use OCR exam reference language or high-level programming language. So, what we know from the question is that this comes under building robust programs, okay? It's where you're doing data validation and you're checking the inputs that the user has entered. We know by looking at this part here, that the user will be entering the first name, surname, the rooms and nights, and stay complete. We also know that based off the data that they'll be entering, what the conditions should be, okay? So we know that the first name and surname should not be empty when they enter it. We know that the room has to be, okay, basic or premium. And we know that the nights that they enter, okay, have to be between 1 and 5. So what we need to do is build a program to test these individual cases. Now, getting straight into it then, I want to set valid as true first of all, okay? Because I want the program to run. What I will check is if first name is empty or surname is empty, I'll put valid as false, alright? So it's true, okay? But then if it becomes empty, we set it as false. Now, what I need you to pay attention to here is 2 points. Point number 1, when we're using a selection statement and we're checking an individual case, we are checking individual variable names, okay, on both times, alright? So first name is empty, and then you can see surname is empty. Point number 2 is the actual condition we're checking with, okay? So we're saying or. So in order for this to work, regardless of if one of them is empty, the answer will not come out, alright? The answer will always become false. Second condition we're checking them, alright, is room. Now, if the room is not basic and the room is not premium, then we know valid is also false, alright? The next condition then, let's have a look. We can see it's nights, alright? Now, nights cannot be less than 1, okay, or nights cannot be above 5, alright? Because it has to be between 1 and 5, inclusive, and it's false. Alright, we've checked all 3 conditions based off what they've told us. Now we need a way of using some selection statements to actually print out if it's allowed or not allowed or allowed. So if it's valid, because we've been setting it as false as we've been going along, if it's valid, then we print allowed. Otherwise, we print it's not allowed. And each of these conditions will only store valid as false if they are met, alright? You can see that it was worth 5 marks. Now, the 5 marks came from the following: 1, 2, and 3 for the conditions, and 1 and 2 for printing out allowed and not allowed. Now, guys, also make sure, okay, it is telling you specifically that you want to print out not allowed and allowed. Do not make your own statements up in this program. Always follow what they are asking you to do. Okay, moving forward, complete the following test plan to check whether the data, whether the number of nights is validated correctly. So you can see here the test data type is 2, which is normal, okay, because it is between, if you have a look at your program, it is in between 1 and 5, which is absolutely fine. The test of nights boundary can be anything. You could have said any number between 1 and 5. It doesn't matter as long as it's in between the conditions that they've stated. Something that's invalid, alright, is something completely outside the expected input, alright. And for example, here I put bananas down, but you could have put anything, okay. Alright, so moving on to part C then. Again, we're going to be doing some more programming. A basic room costs £60 per night. A premium room costs £80 per night. Create a function that takes the number of nights and the type of room as parameters and calculates and returns the price to pay. You do not have to validate these parameters, okay? Alright, so before even programming this question, it is telling you straight away, okay, you need to create a function. I found when a lot of my students did this paper, a common misconception was that they didn't do a function. Now the mark scheme specifically states that if you have not done a function, alright, regardless of if your answer is correct, you will not get any marks. Alright, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function called new price, and I'm going to take two parameters, okay, which is the nights and the type of room. So exactly what it's asked me for, I'm going to create a function. Alright, now we know that if it's a basic room, it costs 60 per night, and if it's a premium, it costs 80 per night. So I'm going to check it. If it's equal to basic, the price is equal to 60 per night, but if it's equal to premium, then it's equal to 80 per night. And finally, last but not least, once I've done my two checks, okay, on what the room is, I'm going to return the price and I'm going to end it. Alright, nice and simple program to do. Check your function, your two individual statements, and return the price. Alright, so write program code that uses new price to output the price of staying in premium for 5 nights. Okay, before we even answer this, right, it says right there, okay, it says very, very clearly that it must use new price, okay? So we need to include that, okay? X is equal to new price. That's me actually calling the function, okay? But there are multiple ways of doing this. And inside of my function, I'm using the following parameters, okay? I'm now running this code above, all right? I'm saying that I have 5 nights, okay? And I'm saying that the room is premium. And what I want to do, because I returned the price to the program, I actually want to print X here, okay? And that will end up telling me the price for me staying 5 nights in my premium room. All right, moving on. So now we have the hotel has 9 rooms that are numbered from 0 to 8. The number of people currently staying in each room is stored in an array. Alright, so if you know it's an array, starts off, it can't be changed, everything is the same data type inside the array with the identifier room. The index room represents the room number, so you know index 0 is data 2, you got 1 all the way up to 8, alright? So having a look at this, the following program counts how many people are currently staying in the hotel. So for count is equal to 1 to 8, total is equal to 0, and total is equal to total plus room plus count, okay? And you're going to keep going through this to add the total. There's 2 logic errors in this program, okay, which is stopping the, which is giving us an output, but it's not giving us the right output. Now, the first one I can see straight away is, by us not having total on the outside of the loop, total is set each time. So all you're doing is you're resetting the count to 0, and you're not actually adding anything to the total when you go for it. So that's the first error I can see, and it's actually your count. Your count should have included 0 in order for it to work, okay? So having a look at the responses, you can see that first and foremost, you should have included 0 in your counter, okay? Or you could have set it 1 to 9. And also, the second thing you could see is that you should have put total is equal to 0 on the outside. Okay guys, that takes me on to the last question of the paper, which now talks about a hotel car park. Now, it is worth 6 marks, and let's have a read through. Okay, so the hotel car park charges £4 per hour. If the car is electric, this price is half to £2 per hour. Write an algorithm. Okay, so here are the steps. Write an algorithm to Write an algorithm to take as input the number of hours the user has parked and whether their car is electric or not. Calculate the output of the total price. Repeat continually until if the user enters 0 hours. So I'm going to take this straight away, and I'm going to start off with a while loop. Now while hours is not equal to 0, because I want to keep repeating this. Okay, I'm looking at that last point there. I'm going to keep repeating this program now until they enter 0. While hours is not equal to 0, I'm going to ask the user to tell me the hours and if the car is electric. So that goes back to point number 1, okay? So point 1 and 3 I've just done right there. I'm going to continue to do that, and if they enter electric is equal to yes, I'm going to times the price by 2 hours, because they have now told me that the it's electric, and also we know, okay, so we're going to times it by 2. If it's not electric, I'm going to times it by 4. And then finally, last but not least, I'm going to end the program and print the price out to the user. Okay guys, that's been the 2022 paper. Thank you for listening, and do comment on the video if you want me to go through any other papers. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.